Have you ever felt like you're auditioning for a role you never chose? Like you're stuck reciting someone else's lines, parents, teachers, friends, society, while a quiet voice inside you whispers, "This isn't my life." You wake up, suit up, meet obligations, put on the same mask, laugh at the same jokes, all as if everything's perfectly fine. But when the noise finally fades, that knot in your gut tightens, and you ask yourself, who am I really? Carl Jung saw this alienation not as a random quirk, but as a signal, a sign that your true self has been pushed into the shadows. Most people drift through their days never daring to discover who they really are. They confine themselves to social roles, crafted identities, and others' expectations, and come to believe that's all life offers. Too many people slip through the world never meeting their own soul. Ask yourself, is that happening to you? The self you cling to, your personality, your wants, your convictions. How much of it is truly yours, and how much was planted by parents, teachers, and peers? From childhood, we learn to fit in, to hide parts of ourselves in order to be loved. We fashion a persona, as Jung called it, a social mask meant for protection. But every time you don that disguise, you drift further from your genuine core. Eventually, the mask feels like the only face you have. Jung warned this disconnection carries a heavy toll. Constant unrest, gnawing dissatisfaction, the persistent sense that something vital is missing. Have you ever achieved a goal only to feel hollow inside, as if the one thing you truly need isn't a new job, a perfect partner, or applause from others? It's buried deep within you, hidden beneath countless layers of conditioning. The critical question is, are you ready to plunge into your own psyche and uncover who you truly are? This isn't a casual stroll. It's a demanding journey. Discovering your authentic self means confronting everything you've repressed, forgotten, or warped over the years. It means turning inward and facing parts of yourself you'd rather leave untouched. Yet this inward facing is the only path to genuine freedom. In this video, we'll dive into the process Carl Jung called individuation, the lifelong work of becoming whole, integrating every fragment of your being, and finally, living from your true essence. Are you prepared for this challenge? Then let's begin. From your earliest years, you learn to mold your behavior to earn acceptance. Perhaps you were taught to be polite, to keep your voice low, to swallow anger, and to constantly please. Or maybe you internalized the need to look strong at all times, concealing doubts, hiding vulnerabilities, and projecting confidence even when you felt anything but certain inside. Unwittingly, you began crafting an identity that wasn't genuinely yours, but a mirror of what the world expected. Jung named this social disguise the persona, the outward mask you wear to fit in. And make no mistake, we all wear one. If you've ever acted differently at work, at home, with friends, or on social media, you felt the power of the persona in your life. Is it useful? Absolutely. Without some mask, social interaction would be impossible. But here's the danger. When you over-identify with that mask, it overruns your inner self. You start losing touch with who you really are. Consider how often you've said or done something purely to blend in. How many times you've swallowed your true opinion for fear of judgment, or plastered on a smile when inside you long to scream. At a certain point, the persona stops serving you and starts dominating you. You're no longer an authentic individual. You've become a character in a role you never consciously chose. And here's the crux of the matter. The persona, no matter how artfully constructed, cannot nourish your soul. It lacks the depth needed to sustain your innermost being. Only by meeting the hidden self beneath that mask can you find genuine wholeness. It may win you approval, but it can't deliver true fulfillment. It brings polite praise, but not lasting joy. Living entirely through your persona leads to a hollow existence, a nagging sense that something vital is missing, yet you can't name what it is. Worse, the tighter you clutch that mask, the more you drift from your authentic core. If the persona isn't your real self, then who are you beneath it? To answer that, you must turn the coin over to its opposite, the part of you you've buried deep in the unconscious. Jung called this hidden realm the shadow, and it marks the true beginning of your quest for self. But beware, what's hidden in the shadow isn't always comfortable to face. Are you ready for the discovery? Stay with me. If this resonates, subscribe now for more. Thank you for your support. Think of it this way. If the persona is the face you show to earn acceptance, the shadow is everything you conceal to avoid rejection. And here's the catch. What you push away doesn't vanish. Instead, it grows stronger in the darkness of your mind, quietly shaping your feelings, your fears, and even your decisions, all without your awareness. Jung described the shadow as the hidden side of the psyche, forbidden desires, repressed anger, weaknesses you refuse to admit, traumas you've tried to forget. And often the attributes buried there aren't evil. They're simply parts of you labeled unacceptable. Maybe as a child, your boundless curiosity was shut down with, "Stop asking so many questions," so you learned to stay silent. Perhaps you showed anger and were told it is wrong, so now you swallow frustrations until they erupt. Maybe you felt sensitive, but society deemed sensitivity weakness. These shadow elements aren't gone, they're alive beneath the surface, demanding to be acknowledged. And until you bring them into the light, they'll continue to influence your life from the shadows. You learn to bury those disowned parts of yourself, your anger, your envy, your raw, unfiltered emotions, so deeply they slipped into your shadow. But they never vanished. They merely waited. And if you've ever surprised yourself with an explosive outburst of rage, or felt a pang of jealousy towards someone and insisted it wasn't there, or found yourself reacting far too strongly to criticism without knowing why, you've met your shadow in action. When left unchecked, the shadow doesn't stay hidden. It creeps out in warped behaviors that undermine your relationships, your career, and your self-worth. Yet here's the paradox no one mentions. Your shadow isn't your enemy. In its depths rest some of your greatest gifts, your raw creativity, your unguarded authenticity, your fiercest resilience. Wholeness demands integration of that shadow. To heal, you must stop fleeing from those buried parts and invite them into awareness. But how do you shine a light on the very things you've spent years suppressing without letting them overwhelm you? That's the question we'll tackle next. The art of shadow work. We'll explore practical steps to meet your hidden self safely, to dialogue with your repressed impulses, to transform reactive patterns into conscious strengths, and to reclaim the energy your shadow has quietly controlled. If you're ready to turn toward the darkness inside and bring back the lost pieces of your soul, stay with me. This is where true individuation begins. The key lies in Jung's central concept of the self, your true essence. And that's exactly where we're headed now. If the persona is your mask and the shadow is what you've repressed, then the self is what remains once those layers fall away. It is the totality of your psyche, the seamless fusion of who you are at core and the face you show the world. Jung maintained that life's purpose isn't to march along society's pre-laid tracks, but to become whole, to uncover that genuine core and live by its guidance. He called this lifelong work individuation. But the self doesn't simply drop into your lap one morning like a gift. It demands an active search, a courageous inward journey that confronts everything you've been taught to bury. It asks for a reconciliation between your deepest, most authentic longings and the roles the outside world has imposed. The biggest barrier? Fear. Fear of losing the identity you've so painstakingly constructed. Fear of discovering that many of your choices were never truly your own. Fear of meeting the facets of your personality you've denied for years. That fear keeps countless people tethered to their persona, playing a counterfeit life while their shadow quietly undermines any hope of real joy. But here's what happens when you begin to integrate your shadow and question the masks you've worn. You unlock a freedom unlike anything you've known. You realize you no longer must pretend. You find that pleasing everyone is optional. You start making decisions that resonate with your truth, not just the expectations of others. And the most remarkable transformation follows. The closer you draw to your authentic self, the more the puzzle pieces of your life click into place. Anxieties and frustrations that once seemed random suddenly reveal their roots. You see why certain patterns keep looping. You understand why some relationships never took root. You gain clarity on the very dynamics that used to derail you. This is the promise of individuation, not perfection, but wholeness. Not an escape from life's challenges, but the strength to meet them as your real, integrated self. Continue with me, and we'll explore the practical steps to invite yourself into full expression, so you can finally live the life you were meant to claim. You begin to sense that, all along, something inside you was nudging you toward your true path, but you were too busy fitting in to heed it. Yet, here's a crucial point. The road to yourself cannot be traveled alone. Integral to this journey are the depths of your unconscious and the archetypes that quietly guide how you think, feel, and behave. Without acknowledging these hidden forces, you'll never fully grasp who you really are. And that's what we'll explore next. The human mind isn't limited to our waking, rational thoughts. Most of our psyche operates beneath awareness, in a realm Jung called the unconscious. He argued that true self-discovery demands more than examining daily decisions. You must dive into these unseen layers, where the blueprint of your identity resides. But what lies in the unconscious beyond your shadow, beyond repressed memories and untapped desires? Even deeper still are the archetypes, universal patterns of thought, emotion, and behavior embedded in what Jung named the collective unconscious. These primordial images shape the way we perceive both the world and ourselves. Ever felt a magnetic pull towards certain myths, films, or symbols? That's an archetype at work. They show up in fairy tales, movies, religions, and most vividly in your dreams and daily actions. Consider the hero who faces trials, overcomes obstacles, and strives for transformation. The wise one, embodying insight and self-reflection. The rebel, challenging norms and questioning authority. The caregiver, devoted to supporting and protecting others. Here's the catch. You don't choose which archetypes influence you. They operate within you, often unnoticed. Problems arise when you identify exclusively with a single archetype. If you see yourself only as the hero, you may feel compelled to be fearless and invulnerable. refusing to acknowledge your own weaknesses. True wholeness requires engaging with all the archetypes active in your psyche, letting each speak its wisdom. In the next segment, we'll learn how to recognize these inner figures and integrate their gifts so you can live fully as your authentic self. If you live exclusively as the caregiver, you'll devote yourself to others until your own needs evaporate. You'll become so busy pouring out your energy that you forget who you are under that mask. Jung taught that finding your true self means giving space to every archetype, not just whichever feels most comfortable, and weaving them into a balanced inner mosaic. But how do you spot these hidden figures at work? They emerge in your dreams, in those nagging impulses, in the repetitive patterns that trip you up for reasons you can't quite name. Ignoring them is like leaving vital pieces of yourself missing. And that's why so many drift through life feeling empty or lost. They fail to recognize the invisible forces steering their wants, their choices, and even their deepest crises. Here's the crucial question. If you remain unaware of these archetypal influences, they run you. They script your behaviors, your doubts, and your relationships. But the moment you recognize them and begin to integrate their energies, you reclaim authorship of your own story. That shift is what separates those who truly discover themselves from those who spend a lifetime trapped in the same automatic loops. And what if you continue to resist? What if you refuse to gaze into your own unconscious and cling to your persona and its illusions? The result is a slow erosion of your spirit, a weariness, a persistent dissatisfaction, a creeping sense that you're living someone else's life. Jung warned of the danger of non-individuation, the psychological torment that awaits anyone who never answers the call to become whole. Now, let's dive into that danger so you can see exactly why escaping your own shadow is the bravest step you'll ever take. Carl Jung warned that avoiding individuation doesn't protect us. It dooms us to a fragmented life packed with anxiety, frustration, and a hollowness no external fix can fill. Many assume that simply following society's rules and molding themselves to fit will bring lasting peace. But that peace is a facade. At some point, the cracks appear. You might face an emotional crisis without any clear cause, a wave of dissatisfaction even though, on paper, everything's perfect. Or you might develop psychosomatic symptoms because your body and mind will find a way to scream, "You're drifting too far from who you are." Non-individuation also shows up in destructive patterns. Ever notice how some people loop through the exact same mistakes? They leap into toxic relationships, then sabotage their own success, or plunge into perpetual discontent. That's the unconscious clawing its way out when you've locked it away. It will have an outlet, even if that outlet is suffering. Another red flag is the sense of merely existing rather than living. Day after day, you go through the motions, a monotonous routine that numbs rather than nourishes. You drowse through life, waiting for something, anything, to make you feel awake. These are the costs of refusing to meet your own depths. When you ignore the call to wholeness, you trade genuine aliveness for a safe but shallow imitation. Only by stepping into the full truth of your psyche can you break free from this slow, internal collapse. In many lives, purpose feels like a distant echo, lost in the current of routines, inherited roles, and unexamined expectations. We drift along, doing what's right, never pausing to ask, is this really who I want to be? Over time, that drift breeds a quiet anger, resentment aimed outward at the world, or turned inward as depression and self-sabotage. you end up a stranger to your own existence. But there is an escape. It begins with one act of courage. Dare to face your own truth. Question the beliefs you've never tested. Challenge the masks you wear. That's the heart of individuation, the lifelong commitment to unmask, to integrate every hidden part of yourself. In practice, living as your true self means dropping the scripts you've been handed. It means waking up each morning with permission to follow your own compass, not someone else's. It looks like speaking the hard truth, even when it risks disapproval. It sounds like keeping quiet, even when it tempts you to please. It feels like pausing, really pausing, to sit with discomfort instead of rushing to fix it. When you finally align with your authentic core, life reshapes itself. Work that once felt meaningless sparks with purpose. Relationships deepen because they're built on real connection, not projection. Your inner world settles into a kind of clarity you've never known, where doubts aren't threats but invitations to learn, and fear isn't a prison but a guidepost to unexplored terrain. This is the promise of individuation, not a polished, perfect self, but a whole self, rich with light and shadow both. To live without masks, without repression, without the old fear of judgment. That is the liberation Jung mapped out. In claiming your true essence, you don't just survive. You awaken to the life you were always meant to live. Finding your true self isn't a final stop. It's an unfolding journey. It doesn't arrive in a single moment of clarity when you suddenly know every answer about who you are. Instead, it unfolds over a lifetime through ongoing discovery, dismantling old stories, and rebuilding from the ground up. You face your hidden fears, free yourself from roles you never chose, and integrate every part of your being. Most people never venture down this road. They stay cocooned in conformity, clinging to their personas because they believe shedding them would mean rejection. They steer clear of their shadows, too frightened of what lurks there. They ignore the archetypal forces at work, unwilling to admit they don't fully steer their own lives. But that safety comes at a steep price, an existence drained of authenticity, depth, and genuine purpose. Jung taught us that real freedom doesn't lie in fitting in. It lies in becoming who we truly are. That means embracing your whole spectrum, your gifts and your imperfections, your light and your darkness. It means authoring your own story rather than being a secondary character in someone else's script. You step out of the puppet's box and claim the pen. This path demands courage, the courage to surrender comforting illusions, to stand face to face with your deepest insecurities, and to accept that you may not be the person you once believed yourself to be. And that's okay, because you now have the chance to emerge more vibrant, more authentic, more fully alive than ever before. So I ask you, are you ready to take on this challenge? Will you question the narratives that have dictated your life? Will you meet your shadow, honor your true self, and finally live in full alignment with your essence? If these words moved you, share in the comments what struck a chord. Have you ever felt trapped in an identity that wasn't your own? Let's explore together. And don't pause here. The next video will dive even deeper into the unseen mechanisms that shape our minds. Keep watching. The journey has only just begun,